In the small town of Crestwood, nestled between rolling hills and thick forests, there was an old racetrack called Thunder Ridge Speedway. Once a bustling hub of motorsport excitement, the track had fallen into disrepair over the years, its grandstands empty and its asphalt cracked and weathered. But for one man, the track held a special allure that he couldn't resist. His name was Jack Thompson, a middle-aged mechanic who had grown up in Crestwood. Jack had always been fascinated by cars and racing, and he had spent most of his life tinkering with engines and dreaming of the glory days of Thunder Ridge Speedway. Now, with the track abandoned and forgotten, Jack saw an opportunity to fulfill his lifelong dream. One foggy morning, Jack arrived at the track with his prized possession, a sleek, vintage race car that he had spent years restoring. As he unloaded the car from his trailer, a sense of anticipation filled him. He had a plan, a crazy plan, some might say, but Jack was convinced it was the only way to bring Thunder Ridge Speedway back to life. Ignoring the warnings of his friends and family, who thought he was wasting his time, Jack set to work preparing the car for the track. He checked and double-checked every nut and bolt, ensuring that his machine was in perfect condition. Then, with a deep breath, he climbed into the driver's seat and fired up the engine. The roar of the car echoed through the empty grandstands as Jack took it for a test drive around the track. The old asphalt felt smooth under the tires, and Jack's heart raced with excitement. This was it, the moment he had been waiting for. But as he pushed the car faster and faster, something strange began to happen. The fog that had hung over the track thickened, swirling around the car like a shroud. Jack's vision blurred, and he felt a strange sensation of being pulled in different directions at once. Suddenly, the fog cleared, and Jack found himself on the track, but it wasn't Thunder Ridge Speedway anymore. The surroundings were familiar yet different, like a twisted version of his hometown. The sky was a sickly shade of green, and the air crackled with an eerie energy. Confused and disoriented, Jack tried to make sense of his surroundings. Then he heard it, the unmistakable sound of engines revving and tires screeching. Racing toward him on the track were other cars, but they looked nothing like the ones he knew. They were sleek and futuristic, with strange symbols emblazoned on their sides. Before Jack could react, the cars were upon him, zooming past with incredible speed. He tried to keep up, but his vintage racer was no match for these otherworldly machines. As he struggled to maintain control, Jack realized that he was no longer in control of his own destiny. He was trapped in some kind of bizarre alternate reality. For what felt like hours, Jack raced around the track, trying to make sense of what was happening. The other cars seemed to taunt him, always just out of reach. He felt a growing sense of desperation, wondering if he would ever escape this strange place. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the race came to an abrupt halt. The cars screeched to a stop, and Jack found himself face to face with the leader of the pack, a figure clad in a dark cloak, with a face shrouded in shadow. "Who are you?" Jack demanded, his voice trembling with fear and confusion. The figure chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down Jack's spine. "I am the keeper of the race," the figure said in a voice that seemed to echo from all around. "You have entered my domain, and now you must race for your freedom." Jack's mind raced with questions, but before he could ask them, the figure waved a hand, and the track shimmered and shifted around them. Now it resembled Thunder Ridge Speedway once again, but there was something off about it. The colors were muted, and everything had a surreal, dreamlike quality. "You will race against the best drivers from different eras and dimensions," the keeper continued. "Win, and you will be free to leave. Lose, and you will be trapped here forever." With a sinking feeling in his stomach, Jack realized that he had no choice but to accept the challenge. The engines roared to life once more, and the race began. As Jack hurtled around the track, he found himself facing opponents unlike any he had ever encountered. There were drivers from the past, their vintage cars gleaming in the strange light, and drivers from the future, their sleek vehicles cutting through the air like knives. The race was grueling, each lap more challenging than the last. Jack pushed himself and his car to the limit, his heart pounding in his chest as he fought to stay ahead. But no matter how hard he tried, the other drivers seemed to have an edge over him, their cars faster and more agile than his own. Just when Jack thought he couldn't go on, something inside him snapped. He remembered all the hours he had spent working on his car, all the dreams he had poured into it. With a newfound determination, he pushed harder, taking risks and making moves he had never thought possible. As the final lap approached, Jack found himself neck and neck with the leader, the keeper himself. The crowd, a strange mix of spectators from different times and places, erupted into cheers and jeers, their voices blending into a cacophony of sound. With one last burst of speed, Jack surged ahead, crossing the finish line just ahead of the keeper. As he did, the world around him shimmered and shifted once more, and he found himself back at Thunder Ridge Speedway, his car parked on the familiar asphalt. Exhausted but exhilarated, Jack climbed out of his car and looked around. The fog had lifted, and the sun was beginning to break through the clouds. He had won. He had beaten the keeper of the race and earned his freedom. As he made his way back to town, Jack couldn't help but smile. He knew that he would never forget his strange journey into the twilight zone of racing, but he also knew that he had proven something to himself. With a newfound sense of purpose, he vowed to restore Thunder Ridge Speedway to its former glory, making it a place where dreams could come true once again.